Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Everybody's excited, right? Jobs reports are out. Guess what? The jobs report says something very, very special. Michael Rudnin, welcome aboard, as well as AVQ, welcome aboard. Anybody else coming in? Come on Twitter, come on Facebook, come on Periscope, come on Facebook Live. We're going to have a great show for you today. As usual, of course, we want to make sure and get started right. Those of you who are just joining us, I ask you so kindly to please go ahead and immediately share this show on your page, share this show on your wall, share this show everywhere. You know why? Because that is how we finally make a difference. That is how we really get things changed. Folks, I ask you, because you know what? If we don't do this, everything is going to be a mirage. Today, Donald Trump made sure not to take questions, any real questions, at his press conference as he announced that the unemployment rate did not get to 20% as a lot of us thought it would. It did not get to 19% as was estimated. It did not go to all these places, but there is a reason why. Brothers and sisters, there is a reason why. And we all know that reason. Please make sure to always stay tuned. And let me tell you why. Because if you are somebody just seeing what's on TV, if you're just seeing the things that even the news tell you, your first inclination is to believe, wow, things are getting better and we might just have been wrong. How wrong could we have been? Is there a possibility that that is the case? Brothers and sisters, we cannot be fooled. We cannot allow ourselves to be fooled. We have to make sure and understand what is going on. And guess what we are going to be doing here? That is our job. Our job is to do exactly that. Make sure folks understand what is going on. So, without further ado, that's what we are going to do. But you know what? I got to do something special here. I got to go ahead and make sure and get this stuff shared in the right places on my wall. I think I need to get it on my wall, so I will go ahead and get this on the wall. And then we'll move on from there. So bear with me as I do that. Share. Where do I want to write the post? Guess where I want to write the post? You know, it's funny. I just went ahead and started doing this Facebook thing, and they changed it on us, brothers and sisters. They changed it on us. It looks a bit different. Facebook just came out with a new interface, and I don't know that I can figure it out before the end of the show. So anyhow, let's get busy. Hey, Paul Fleming from ATL, welcome aboard. Bruce Ballard, welcome aboard. Let's see, who else did I miss? Norman Reynolds, welcome aboard. So here, let's get started. The jobs report, I tell you what, before I do that, let's go ahead and start the program. Don't be fooled by jobs report is the title of the show. Police brutality on camera. We're going to tackle police brutality first because that's a short subject. I just kind of want to give a little impression of what's going on there. Were the economists wrong? The jobs report was not as bad as expected. No. They were right. Police brutality is in full vogue. for all to see. Police continue their brutality for all to see. The jobs report that gave Trump a talking point better be examined. Police brutality is in full vogue. The time it is more televised. This time it is more televised, and they are brutalizing those who are allies to the brutalized. I kind of played with words there. They're brutalizing those who are allies to the brutalized. The young man beaten with a baton in New York as he came out to film an altercation between the cops beating down somebody on the ground. A 75-year-old man is pushed to the ground with a likely cracked skull. And we'll have 2 videos on that to show. Look at the response, people. A woman shot between her eyes with rubber bullets in San Diego. And on and on and on. These are just the ones reported, the ones that people have filled in. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll start. We'll go ahead and start with the MSNBC report by Katie Tur, who made a prescient notation that I think we should all kind of see, because it's important that we understand what's on those reports are not necessarily what's. So here we go. Police officers have been lying on reports for a very long time. And the thing about it is, America has always wanted to believe in the sanctity of the police officer. The police officer writes something and it must be true. And those villains on the ground, those villains that have been arrested, are somehow the guilty party. This is not to try to defend real crooks and looters and real bad people. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is, many a times you go into a police report and find out that they're lying about you, upstanding citizens, they're lying about you, etc. I want to play this and then we'll take it on the other side, because this MSNBC host, Katie Tur, really says it well.
So what you can't see in that video is there is blood coming out of that man's ear. There is another angle on that video where you can very audibly hear the smack on the ground when his head hits the ground. As of this morning, Chuck, the man is in serious but stable condition at the Erie County Medical Center. They've sent out a press release, Chuck, saying the man tripped and fell at the protest. The officers involved have now been suspended without pay. Chuck, there's a number of problems with what we saw. Number one, that they pushed this man. And it's quiet. It doesn't seem like there's a melee going on there. Number two, that everyone around kind of just watched it happen and then didn't do anything as he was lying there until it seems some gentlemen in military fatigues went down and started to take a look at him. But number three, what happened with the police department that they thought it was okay to send out a press release that the man tripped and fell? Thank God there was video that showed that he did not trip and fall. Yeah. How do you do that as a police force? And that calls into question every single press release we read from police departments that describe a situation. We're expected to take their word for it. Thank God there's video showing that that didn't happen. What happens, though, in the other cases where there is not video? How might George Floyd's arrest have been described in a press release had somebody not been there to take video of it?
She hits the nail on the head. She hits the nail on the head. Suppose there was no video there for us to have seen what occurred in the case of George Floyd, right? I mean, there's a good possibility that could have occurred. You know what? It actually did. And I think in the blog piece that I wrote, if you go to egbertowillies.com, I wrote a blog piece. When did I write that? Oh, you know what? It's actually not out yet. I was actually still writing it at the time that I started to post this show. So what I want to do, I want to go ahead and pull that piece up. It's still in draft mode. It'll be out after this show because I wanted to kind of add a little bit more. I wanted to go ahead and make sure that before I tell you guys something is so, that it's really so. You know, in other words, corroborated information we want to always have out there. So I'm pulling that up as we speak. I think it's coming up. For some reason, there we go. Let me open the draft because I think it's important for us to be able to understand what's going on here. In the draft, I said, Host Katie Tur continues her objective, no bars held reporting as she calls out police reports that do not reflect reality. And then in the end, I put this important piece. It is clear that, like many other police reports, the officers lied in the George Floyd police report. The myth that police officers are the bastions of society was always that. We need our police officers for the jobs that they are hired to perform. Their jobs are to ensure we live within the laws we all agree to, period. In other words, we're not hiring them to be saints. We're not hiring them to be martyrs. We are hiring them to fulfill, to make sure the laws that all of us as a collective, meaning that what we've allowed Congress to pass, etc., that these police officers enforce what we have all agreed on. Nothing more, nothing less. And for that, we give them a pay understanding that it's a risky job. And if you want to take these sort of risk, of course, we're protecting you. We also want to compensate you for that. But you're not, don't sit back and believe that you're inherently good. Because a lot of people that go into policing, it's the desire to have power over others. And fine, if you want to do that, that's what we need you to do. But we want to make sure that you do it within the laws that we defined, that gives you the parameters under which you can do it. But we must stop living under the false pretense that they are not but a reflection of society with the power to kill you. In other words, those officers, we cannot expect those police officers to look any different than society looks. So if society is a racist society, we'll see them that way. If society is an abusive society, we see it that way. What they are is the magnification of what society is because they have power. And when you have power, you have unlimited ways of showing it. And that is where the law comes in. So we have to ensure that the laws that we pass under which police officers operate are the parameters, the frames, the rails under which we hold them accountable. We don't need to think about them as, oh, you are so nice. We don't need to think of them as bastions of society. We don't need any of that. We send our military out in the rest of the world to keep us supposedly safe. We hire them to do that, and we pay them to do that. Unfortunately, the corruption in our entire system now pay hired military to go out there, which commands a whole lot more pay than the public sector gives. We have to clean a whole lot of things up. But anyhow, I want to show another video. This one here is just kind of shows the physically Chuck Todd discussing that same incident, but in a form that shows the inhumanity that many of these officers have become. And it's not that individually they are, it's the institution just about makes them that way. Because you take a look, he let me tell you what Chuck said, or play what Chuck had to say, and then we'll take that on the other side. Let's see, where is Chuck on that one? I think this is this one here.
The second most disturbing image after they fell is the police officer that prevents another police officer from checking on the man. There's a point where he bends down. There's one of the officers
looked over and didn't do anything.
Right. But one was about to, and it's like one guy grabbed him like he was grabbing, like you might grab your little kid when you're like, whoa, get out of the road here, son. Like grabbed him like, no. And what's amazing is that of all weeks to behave this way, you would think that every law enforcement official in the country is thinking differently this week. At least you might hope.
Yeah.
Exactly. This just shows you the mentality. Shows you the infection. This just shows you that they simply don't give a damn and that they think later on this will be forgotten and the majority of Americans are going to start tolerating again that they mostly abuse a particular sect of Americans and their allies. What did I say in the beginning? I said earlier on something very prescient, and that is, this time it is more televised, and they are brutalizing those who are allies to the brutalized. And as soon as we don't have these huge protests, their expectations is likely that we are going to go back to where we were before. We ain't going back to where we were before at all. This is forward moving, and all of us allies need to make sure that we stay engaged in the game and make sure that we do not go back. We do not go back to where things were before. Anyhow, that is it for police brutality, because I don't want to dwell on all of that, because again, there are very much more important things for us to talk about. Let's go ahead now and talk about the economy. I'm going to play something that we talked about probably 2 weeks ago or maybe, and when this economist had something to say. I want to play this, and then we'll take it on the other side. Check this out.
George Floyd's last words, "I can't breathe." For the president.
That is a wrong video. The one that I want to show you is Obama's Treasury Secretary, Obama's economic advisor, an economist, who came on to the program and he said, there is likely to be a big zoom in the economy that may give Donald Trump some bragging rights. But not only would it be short-lived, but the problem is that given that our economic problems are systemic, it will present a problem because it's going to give Republicans the idea that no more stimulus is necessary and keep the economy sort of in a state of animated suspension in a low state. But the problem is, will that be enough to give Trump the ability to win over in November? And if that is the case, keep Americans in a permanent state of, well, you know what, poorness. Here we go. I want you to listen to that, and then we'll take it on the other side. There's a report in Politico where one of President Obama's economists said that we may have a fast uptick in the economy, and he's fearful that uptick will actually be a positive news for Obama. Let me go ahead and play bits and pieces of an interview that he just did with Chuck Todd, and then we'll take it on the other side.
The top economists in the Obama administration, Jason Furman, believes that we are about to see, quote, the best economic data we've seen in the history of this country, with record job losses and small businesses struggling nationwide.
There's a report in Politico where one of President Obama's economists said that we may have a fast uptick in the economy, and he's fearful that uptick will actually be a positive news for Obama. Let me go ahead and play bits and pieces of an interview that he just did with Chuck Todd, and then we'll take it on the other side.
The top economists in the Obama administration, Jason Furman, believes that we are about to see, quote, the best economic data we've seen in the history of this country, with record job losses and small businesses struggling nationwide. Politico notes that Furman's sunny outlook has earned him some confusion from other economy wonks and praise from this current White House.
I noticed one of my erstwhile pals from the other side of the aisle, Mr. Jason Furman, an Obama supporter, essentially came up with the same scenario that Kevin Hassett and I have been talking about, a very strong third quarter, very strong fourth quarter.
Jason, what are you suggesting here? Are you suggesting a V spike, or are you suggesting a W? And this will just be a spike that looks and feels good in the moment, but then dissipates.
Went straight down. We'll start to look like a V as we go up, and then we'll slow down into a slog. If you want to be complacent about the economy, you will have a lot of material for that complacency over the next few months, because I think you will see, as the lights get turned back on, very rapid growth. But that growth I don't expect will continue. And so I think complacency would be the wrong attitude to have.
What gives you confidence that we are going to see this spike in the third quarter? I say this because demand hasn't picked up nearly as fast as perhaps those that opened these economies, these partial reopenings. On the other hand, these slow actual increase in demand has to be concerning, no?
Just to be clear again, I mean, if you look at the daily data, consumption growth from April 15th to May 15th grew. It probably grew like 30%. It is also still about 40% below where it was before the crisis. And that illustrates the type of dynamic. It's an easy way to create jobs, to rehire furloughed workers, turn the lights back on. Some businesses are going to do that. Most of that will be front loaded. And it's the harder growth, the slog, that will be, I expect, more backloaded.
This is the biggest fear that many have about how it's going to help the president. And it goes like this. Let's say the economy fell by over 50%. The consumption, all that sort of stuff fell by 50%. When we were at full potential, it's 100. The economy is at 100. Just use it as a number, 100. So it drops 50%. It's down to 50, right? So now, and remember that is because everybody is at home. A lot of small businesses are closed and all that kind of stuff. So everybody's at home. They're not going to restaurants for that economic activity. So economy is cut in half, all right? It's not quite that, but I'm just using that as an example. So now the economy is at 50. Now, if the economy was at 90 and we said we had a 10% increase, that would be a big number. That would be 8, 9, right? But if the economy is at 50 and we have millions of people that are just staying home because they can't go to work because they'll get sick. Let's say there are 40 million unemployed right now. We have never seen reemployment at a million something people per month. But that is what's going to occur. Because as people start to go back to work, these are just businesses like having these people on vacation. And as soon as these businesses open, that million persons around the country goes back to work. Another business, a set of businesses open, another million people go to work. So you have the semblance of an economy on the rise when it's just an economy going to a real normal. The economy wasn't going to stay in a funk completely because we just have so many people. So we could see where the 2 months up to the election, you have 2 or 3 million people get jobs in a particular month. But that's not really that people are getting jobs in the particular month. What that is people are going back to their jobs in a particular month. And that is what we who talk the narrative have to start doing now. We have to start preparing Americans to say that million people a month or 2 million people a month that you're going to see getting jobs, these are people returning to their jobs, not people that are getting jobs because of a new economy. So you notice he talks, when Chuck asked him about a W, it means, okay, you spike down deeply, you seem to have a sharp incline on the W, and then Chuck was talking about it dropping again. I have a feeling that we're more with Chuck because I think what's going to happen is I think we're going to have a recurrence in the virus. And once the virus come back with a vengeance, you're going to have to chop off employment again. People are going to have to stay home again. So I think that's what Chuck is talking about. The economist is not talking about a recurrence of the virus. He's assuming that we are going to mitigate that. In other words, that maybe that won't occur, or even if that occurred, we're going to have enough safeguards that people can continue going to work. I don't think so. Not under a Trump administration can that happen, because he's not even believing that there is a possibility that this stuff will go back. So you have to think about that. Whether it's a V or a W, it's still going to be that we first entered depression territory. And I want you to understand that and not sit back and believe anything else that you hear about. Oh, Trump is going to, as soon as the economic numbers are positive, he's going to start singing the holy glory out of that. You have to be intelligent enough to point out to everybody that you're in touch with that that's not real employment. That's just people going back to the jobs that they had. Exactly. And so I think I said that about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and that is exactly what happened, right? In other words, you get this big spike in employment, and the question is, why did you get that spike again? You got that spike because of what? You got that spike because the economy people just started to go back to work. Now, why did that spike come in let's say, the end of May, and not, let's say, July or August? I'm going to tell you one thing. I do attribute that to the president. I think we have got to give the president credit for that fast move to the of employment that way. We should blame nobody, or not blame. We should congratulate the president for that fast economic. I shouldn't call it a recovery, but that fast boost in employment. And let me tell you why. The president was on a narrative that says we need to get back to work, go back to work, go back to work, go back to work. All the Republican governors prematurely opened their other jobs so that people would go back to work, go back to work, go back to work. Nothing was there to tell these people we are sending you back to work in a more healthy environment to ensure that the 1% of you that are going to die don't die, or that the 5% of you that are going to get sick and have permanent health problems don't get sick and have permanent health problems. That was not guaranteed to you. All was guaranteed to you is that you're going to go back to work because we are going to try our best not to give you any more stimulus, and the price that we are going to pay to have a faster recovery is your life. In other words, what is a life worth? The maintenance of the capitalist economy at all costs without any deviation from the norm of increasing with a normal, which is a constant growth. Of course, eventually that ends. But again, you have to understand what that is. So yes, I want everybody out there, when they see that 2.5 million people, not to think that those were new jobs created. They were not. Those were 2.5 million people going back to jobs they already had or jobs that already existed. Give the president credit for that. Give the president credit for marching many Americans to their deaths. Give the president much credit for ensuring that a lot of Americans will be sick. Give the president a lot of credit to ensure that Americans will not be insured as they get sick, because they won't pass the necessary stimuli that will mitigate these particular issues. And I'm glad that when Biden came out today, Biden didn't quite say that, but what Biden did is he made it clear that, hey, Donald Trump, let's look at the numbers beyond just the numbers. Still, we're at 13-point-something% unemployment. Still, Boeing hasn't laid off all the people it will. Still, the airline companies haven't laid off all the people that they will. Still, the restaurants are not going to come back, and the repercussions of restaurants not coming back will have a depleting effect throughout the economy as it walks through the economy. So therefore, after people return to the jobs that are returnable to, we'll have a stop and likely a further decline. Here is what Brother Biden had to say.
George Floyd's last words, "I can't breathe." For the president to try to put any other words in
I clipped that. I needed to clip that correctly. There we go. Here we go again.
George Floyd's last words, "I can't breathe." For the president to try to put any other words in the mouths of George Floyd, I frankly think is despicable. And the fact that he did so on the day when black unemployment rose, Hispanic unemployment rose, black youth unemployment skyrocketed, tells you everything you need to know about this man.
I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe. There we go. My clicker went bad. I'm sorry about that. Anyhow, so, entonces, he said it right, and people listened right to what he had to say there. You know, there are other ways to do it, right? Angela Merkel did it. Angela Merkel, no other economy in the industrialized world, meaning in the, I don't remember what you call that group. Maybe it's one of my great listeners will tell me it's a group of, I think, 15, 19, 20 nations or something like that. Had the kind of decline we had because they had a great social safety net. But any social safety net compared to that of America is actually great, right? So what we have is, like I wrote this yesterday, Angela Merkel, while Donald Trump is doing absolutely nothing to mitigate unemployment, people losing insurance, people starving, and much more, Angela Merkel is doing her job. Check this out. The Germans' new stimulus is using modern monetary theory, what I consider a form of Keynesian economics, to ensure her citizens don't suffer. Trump better wake up. Germany has a strong social safety net, and they are stimulating their economy above and beyond that. OECD. I've got the best damn listeners. Thank you, Michael Rudnin. OECD, that's who I meant. Absolutely so. The United States has no guaranteed health care, child care, pay it forward tuition, and other programs that Germany and other sensible countries have. The impending suffering of many of our Americans will not go unnoticed. Now, I'm not sure how Donald Trump is going to get around this one. If people's love for him is greater than a starving belly, I don't know which one is greater. We're going to find out. Because the people that are going back to work are, people that have better means, etc. But a lot of Donald Trump's base are in places like, I remember that too, Norma. When American carnage was 5% unemployment, that's what he said. But we are not good at that. So let's get that. Donald Trump once said that a 5% unemployment rate was carnage. Therefore, 13.3% unemployment rate should not be just carnage, but a slaughter followed by a carnage, followed by a nuclear bomb explosion from within. I like that. Norman said it's a 13% got to be an American hellscape. Yeah, but Norman, I don't know. Hellscape doesn't sound as bad as carnage or not only carnage, as bad as carnage or slaughter or, hellscape sounds too. That's an elitist word, brother. Are you an elite? No, I'm kidding you. I'm messing with you, Norman. Anyhow, look, folks, let me tell you. So Angela Merkel is doing what she needs to do, right? Now, for anyone, for those people who are going bonkers, the economy is coming back and good for capitalism and all of that. Look, today it was reported in Common Dream, and it said as follows. The title of the article was, amid COVID-19 and nationwide protests, America's billionaires got $79 billion richer over, you think maybe a quarter? Think maybe 2 quarters? Maybe 3 quarters? Maybe a year, right? Hell no! They got richer by $79 billion in 1 week. An analysis released Thursday by the Institute for the Policy Studies finds that the combined wealth of U.S. billionaires surged by $565 billion between March 18th and June 4th, the same period which 42.6 million Americans filed jobless claims. I got interviewed in Spanish by a Chilean paper earlier this week. And the guy was asking me things like, so what's going on in America and what do you think, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I after I answered a few questions, I told him, well, the billionaires made about $200 billion in the last couple of weeks or so. And he thought I said $200 million, right? So when he found out I said $200 billion, he said, what? $200 billion? I'm like, yeah. And then here comes the Common Dreams report that said, just last week, these suckers made $79 billion. This is, look, let me tell you something, people. You are risking your life for them. So today I had on Facebook, right? Let me take this page off for a minute here, so I can find the Facebook and not expose stuff that I don't need to expose. But I had a friendly discussion on Facebook earlier today, and then I'm going to go back to that article because it's very important, and then I'm going to come to your messages, my brothers and my sisters. But what happened when I get some of these messages, and now that I have this new Facebook thing, it's going to be kind of hard to. Oh, here, you know what? She answered again. So here's a thread. I want to show you a thing because these are all nice people. Okay, I don't want anybody to have any animosity for people, whatever. I like all these folks. We all have different ideologies, but the issue within it is that, as it turns out, what happens is people think a bit differently. But anyhow, this is what happened, right? A person said, let me see, this is on Facebook, and let's see. Well, I'm not going to put this on screen because it's actually for friends, so I don't want to expose. So I'll just read it for you. A friend of mine wrote, "Putting on my political analyst hat. 2.5 million jobs created, most ever in history. Dow over 27K and rising, almost back to pre-pandemic numbers. Unemployment fell to 13.3%. Early estimates predicted we would be close to 35%. Never got there. Early numbers at the ballot box in special elections and primary shows that Democrats are getting trounced in voter turnout and enthusiasm in battleground states and even very blue districts in Democratic strongholds. Republican voter registrations have more than doubled during pandemic in the last 2 months, and we outnumber Democrat registration by more than 2 to 1 in every important battleground states. If you are on the right side, this is very good news. Don't let them get you down. And they are even throwing in the kitchen sink. Keep fighting. Political analysts, hats off." A friend of mine said that. She's on the right side. When I saw that message today, I said to myself, wow. This is, you get a little bit of good information and it turns into a big thing, right? So I replied to her, and let me see if I can get my reply on the screen. Yeah, there we go. I'm not going to put it on the screen because she has some responses. I said, "Please read my post from this morning, billionaires 79.9 billion, the ones that I just showed you." And in the post, what I said, I'm going to tell you what I asked her to read. What I asked her to read is the following, and that I can put on the screen. I asked her to read this, where I responded to that article that said, first of all, the article continued to say, over just the past week, how much they made. Chuck Collins, director of the Program on Inequality and the Common Good at IPS, said in a statement that in turbulent times, weak in the life of the nation, these statistics remind us that we are economically and racially divided than in any time. We're more so than in any time. Our moral, economic, and physical health as a society depends on building a post-pandemic economy that works for everyone, not just the billionaire class, said Collins. Surging billionaire wealth juxtaposed with the suffering and plight of millions undermines the solidarity required for us to recover together. And then I wrote that I piggybacked on top of that article. And the reason I piggybacked onto it is that I was hoping that article was a bit more expressive in some of the issues. So I said, the scare of unemployment hitting 20% has not yet happened. Instead, it dropped a bit to 13%. Why? Americans forced to go back to work before cogently addressing the pandemic. Trump and GOP's plan was perfect. Give some crumbs to Americans to hold them over during their dare in light moment. The dare in the light moment. We're scared. All this stuff is happening. Of course, the stimulus gave the bulk to the corporatocracy. At the same time, make it clear we the people, the government, would not use its power to help the masses any longer. After all, the wealthy needed their sacrifice to maintain their growth. We must sacrifice to keep growing. We must sacrifice to keep the wealthy, to keep them with that ever-expanding growth. You notice what my friend said? Hey, the stock market is rising. We were supposed to get 35% unemployment. We only got, we went from 14 point something to 13 point something. Great job. Wow. And the numbers are exactly as one would expect in the near term. The unemployment rate rise has been arrested. At what price? At what price? Increased infection and likely more expanding deaths in the coming weeks. Will the billionaires who we continue to enrich do their part to pay for the sacrifice of American health and debts? Only if we, the people, demand fairness and we get it. At some time, we must stop being the lapdogs of the rich. At some times, we must break the mental chains. Hell, we send women and men off to die to support capitalism and then forget about them on return. Let's start voting for policies for us for a change. Let's not fall for the misinformation. We have proven they need us more than we need them. It is time. The reason gas is at $1.49 instead of $3.49 is because we proved that we have the power to control. And if we take the power, if we take the responsibility, if we take the wherewithal to take command, we can prevent their capitalism. We can prevent their capitalism used against us as they take our socialism for themselves. We can mitigate that. So folks, I want us all to really stop buying into the myths. That stuff about Americans want to go back to work. Everybody wants to do useful work. Everybody does. There's no magic about it. But we should demand that we work in a safe place. Because when the billionaires are behind in their gated communities and drinking their filtered water and their filtered rivers of their lazy pools and filtered rivers and all of that, Americans are there supporting them. Right? So when they're go back to work, but you don't have a healthcare system that if you get sick can fix you. What is there for you? Remember, and I repeat this every show, my dear listeners, please remember the truth. Please remember the truth. We are what again? Antiseptic. We are in a system of antiseptic slavery. Remember the term, my brothers and my sisters. Antiseptic slavery. That is where we now reside. And we only reside there by our own consent. So will we stop consenting? Will we start doing what's necessary for us to no longer consent? Come on, my brothers and my sisters, we can do that, can't we? We can definitely do that. Okay, let me go ahead and start working on your notices. For after the show, Michael Rondin says, for after the show, secular talk discussing authoritarianism in America at 1:30. Hey, American people, do you believe in freedom? My guess is that they all be, yeah, absolutely. Well, so you know, when you call in the U.S. military on U.S. streets and have them try to enforce the law, you no longer live in a free country. The United States government is having a crisis of legitimacy. You don't respond to that with further illegitimate actions. There was a protest sparked by police brutality, and the police response was more police brutality. You get that right, brother. You've got that right. AVQ, welcome aboard. Norman Reynolds, Bruce Ballard. Michael Rondin also said, Berto, unemployment rate doesn't count underemployment and long-term unemployment. It's not an accurate representation of our economy. Thank you for stating that. Thank you for highlighting that. Folks, I forgot to tell you that we have a new way of getting to us. That you can either go to, you can call 346-248-7799 and put in the code 254-600-9091. It's on the screen if you actually want to come in and talk. And I can see on the screen here whether you want to talk or not, and we can have a conversation. All right, let's see. Michael Rudden said, Wall Street up 800 points during a pandemic where people are struggling. Talk about another metric that doesn't represent reality, where the people are struggling while the rich get away like bandits. And not only that, Rudden, the other thing a pandemic gives them a reason is an excuse to lay people off with impunity, right? And that's the whole shebang. That's the whole thing that they're talking about. Now they have the cover of the pandemic that they can start right-sizing for their shareholders, right? Putting everything into the right context, putting everything at the right size. Let's start getting rid of people. That's the name of the game, and that's what we're going to do. Brothers and sisters, it's all written. It's all written. Let's see. What else can I go to? Let's see. Did Ledo say something? Bruce Ballard. National civil rights groups are recommending that people of color and allies start by destroying their own home. This will give you experience needed to burn down America. Wow. I don't know where you got that from, Mr. Daniel Ledo. You must have been watching Fox News. Okay, Lee Grant. People who think they know how a police department should run should try to do the job for a day, week, or so. Like I said, I have several relatives that are detectives, police officers, and all these things. And these are good. They're very good people. They say that these guys are just power hungry. So no, sir, we kind of follow what we don't just talk. We actually know what's going on, my dear brother Lee Grant. Michael Rudnin, Mammoth Poland, do you think the anger that led to these protests are justified? Justified, 78%. not justified, 16%. Given the events around George Floyd, including the burning on a police precinct, is justified, 54% says yes, not justified, 38%. It seems like the inner activism is coming out in us. Thank you so kindly, America. Lee Grant says, would that hold true for a minority in America? I don't know what that is about, so I have to see the YouTube. The local Pizza Hut in my area had shut their doors for good, and that is going to be happening throughout the country. Lawrence Sims says, the economy recovers at the risk of losing unemployment benefits and maybe death. That is it. You hit it on the money, sir. That is exactly right. Everyone should listen. This is Daniel Ledo. Everyone should listen to Egberto because socialists are experts on the economy. I think we kind of know it quite a bit better than capitalists. We know it quite a bit better than capitalists. Yeah, we do. All right, let's see. Socialism is surely the answers, comrades. That is my good friend Lee Grant being sarcastic. That's okay, Lee. Still love you, brother. James Caldwell, not socialism, but collaboration is the key to moving forward, not being taken care of, but participating in making things better in an adaptive mindset with multiple kinds of expertise. You know, James, they frame socialism, democratic socialism, as somehow people with a handout. That is not what it is at all. Capitalism is slaves work, and the people with a handout are the people with capital. Remember that. We always have to remember that. It's all in how we learn things and how we frame it. A capitalist can stay at his pool while his money works for him. That is the height of handout, because there's somebody else out there busting their butts, putting their limbs at risk, and all of these things. That is capitalism. Capitalism is how many like to define the ills, not socialism, but the ills of socialism. And when we start to reframe the way we were taught things into the way things really are, it'll make a lot of things a lot better. Michael Rudnin replying to this is what capitalism looked like. An analysis released Thursday by the Institute for Policy Studies finds that the combined wealth of U.S. billionaires, $565 billion that's what I was talking about in the article. Thank you for reposting that, my brother. Nancy Scott, stock market really isn't a reflection of the economic status of the majority of the people who own stocks, right? You know how they get around that, Nancy? They like to say, oh, but a lot of stocks are in your 401k or in your retirement or whatever. Don't believe the bunk. It's such a small percentage of the totality. It makes no sense. Daniel Ledo takes exception with me saying people are forced to go back to work. You starve them and tell them unless you go back to work, you ain't going to eat. Yeah, you go back to work. I would say that's kind of forced. Let's see. Nancy Scott, according to the statistics from the Department of Labor, the jobless rate dropped to 13.3% and 2.5 million jobs were added. But the unemployment rate for African Americans rose to a staggering 16.8%, Hispanics 19.5%. The jobless rates for whites dropped from 14.2% to 12.4%. But you see, Donald Trump will love those numbers, right? The right people are getting back their jobs, and the people are the not so cared for people, the people that nobody cares about, right? Who cares, right? They lose jobs. It's our system, baby. It's our system. Daniel Ledo, can you call it slavery if it is a voluntary? No, you can't call it slavery if it's voluntary. But voluntary doesn't define voluntary in the way you define voluntary. Voluntary is when you don't have another choice. It's no longer voluntary. So you are correct that you can't define it as voluntary. I mean, there's not voluntary slavery. You can't have that. But when you must do something or else, that is slavery. Yes, sir. All right, Michael Ledo, Michael Rudnin, Ledo, if we have a better social safety net, there will be no slavery. You hit the nail on the head, Senor Rudnin, and normal response as well. Daniel, it is not voluntary. I would not call an army voluntary if it were that. If you don't join the army, you die. Thank you, sir. Okay, let's see what else is here. Daniel, it's not voluntary. I would not call an army volunteer if it were that. Oh, yeah, I read that already. And then Lawrence Sims says, I was on the run and replying to Lee Grant and his try to be a cop for a while. I asked him, would that same walk-in shoes apply to being a minority, more specifically an African American in America? Oh, Lawrence, you are a dirty little one, Lawrence. I can't believe you did that to our brother. How could you do that to our brother? Use an analogy to show certain kind of hypocrisy. Lawrence Sims, you get the message of the day, Mr. Sims. You get the message of the day, Mr. Sims. You do, because that is exactly the question that you said. Have you ever walked in a policeman's shoe? He could say, you see how he got you there? But, so you asked him the converse. Lawrence, that was a good one. I didn't even think about doing that, man. Good one, Lawrence. I love that. Daniel Ado, no, that is coercion. Geez, pick up a dictionary. Oh, there goes Daniel again. If it's, Daniel, you're right. Let me tell you something, Daniel. Coercion, yes, but coercion, slavery is also coercion, right? I mean, a slave is coerced into slavery because otherwise he gets shot or he dies. Okay, Lado, that's a coercion too. You see, I mean, you got to be careful with the way you attack, because you get to not see the nuances in things. It's important. Rose William, welcome aboard, my friend. Just joining at the last minute. Why weren't you here early, Rose? We missed you. We missed that. I'm here. And Michael Rudnin, let's see, pardon me to step away. Catch you the next time. Hey, look, thank you for always being here, Mr. Rudnin, and take care. We'll see you the next time around. We got to shut this baby down in about 2 minutes as well. No slave is forced. Yes, it is forced by the whip, by the laws and other things. And what Norman was saying is absolutely correct as well. If you are going to starve to death, that is being forced to stay alive. Therefore, you go ahead and you do something. That's coercion. The natural piece of coercion is exactly that. Norman is exactly correct. Norman is absolutely correct. And no, that's not arrogance on my part, Danielle. Those are just facts. You're the one who said, look at the dictionary, use the words. Use the dictionary. Use the words. Come on, man. You should know better than that. Anyhow, folks, we're at the end of the program. I want to thank you guys so kindly for being here. I'd like to ask you so kindly to please, please, please support the show. There are many ways for you to support the show. One of the major ways that I implore you to support the show is go to our Patreon, visit our Patreon, and support us by becoming a Patreon subscriber of our show. And you want to know how to do that, right? How do you become a Patreon supporter? You go ahead and you click on the link that I'm putting in the feed right now. That is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Please consider becoming Please consider becoming a patron. Ensure that we can continue to do this. You can also contribute by going to our PayPal. Go to paypal.me/politicsdoneright. Again, that is paypal.me/politicsdoneright. And don't forget, you can visit our store as well. That is at store.politicsdoneright.com. Store.politicsdoneright.com. They're all inside of the feed. And here on the screen, you can see some of our stuff. You can see our T-shirts that says I support independent media. You can see you can go ahead and get our book, As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. Or you can get my book as well, the other book that I wrote called Lose Weight and Be Fit Now. Or get one of our cups, our nice, beautiful cups with Politics Done Right. And we have a lot of different types of cups, a lot of different types of T-shirts and other stuff to help us defray the cost of having to do a full-time program. Remember, this is a 16-hour-a-day endeavor for a one-person independent media thing. And when I fly out of town to cover as well, you ought to see how it is. I've sent you guys some stuff of how it looks doing what we do. Lena, late hi from Arctic, Norway here. I interviewed a person from Norway, and he really gave a hell of an interview as far as how your healthcare system works, etc. I am so impressed with how you guys do things over there. We could learn a lot from people don't understand. You learn by what different people have tried, what different people have done, and that's how you get together. That's how you learn. So again, folks, visit our or become a contributor by going to Patreon, meaning a subscriber, patreon.com/politicsdoneright. That is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Please visit our store at store.politicsdoneright.com, store.politicsdoneright.com. And as well, you can support us by going to paypal.me/politicsdoneright. Oh, so that's how you found us. Oh, look, I really appreciate you coming to us from Norway. We have people from all over the world checking in, and it is always a warm feeling to have people from all over. Thank you so kindly for being here with us. Look, folks, we are going to shut this baby down. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this baby, same way every time. I am what? Out! Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.